so it's Christmas Day, and I just got done recording my review for The Housemaid, which you've probably seen by now. And you know what? I already am feeling confident with my top 10 worst of the year list, so I might as well do that. And this is my first year on YouTube coming to a close, technically, and this will be the first time I'm doing it because a lot of people, whether they're a movie buff or not, they're definitely going to talk about the best and worst things of the year, and it just so happens to be movies this time around. So yeah, I'm going to make it a tradition to talk about the best and worst movies of each year, starting now. I'm going to start off with the worst first, so I could just actually acknowledge and celebrate the best for last. Also, I don't know if Marty Supreme's going to be arriving on that list yet. You probably have already seen my Marty Supreme review, or at least that's the intent.
I need to apologize.
So here's hoping it makes the top 10 best list. As of right now, I'm just going to talk about the worst. I will acknowledge the worst movies of this year do not rival the worst movies of last year, at least in terms of quantity. But man, there were some stinkers out there that I was very upset that I watched. In fact, I actually had to pull the brakes on the amount of movies I saw because I realized I did not have any sort of quality control. I was just eating up so much garbage without any understanding that, hey, you can actually just see the good films. You don't exactly need to watch some of the trash that are on this list. So yeah, a lot of the movies will be from the first half of the year instead of the second. Don't worry, I got some of the second half of the year movies here too, don't worry. Full disclaimer, this is my opinion, so you could completely disagree with it. And I'm not gonna go into full detail about each movie. I'm gonna try to be as brief as possible. If you want to hear further thoughts on a lot of the movies on this list, you can either find that information in the form of a YouTube review or an IMDb review. And if it's not there, I got 3 sentences on the 2025 movies ranked, which is basically an expansion of the top 10 worst and best list, just letting you know. Anyhow, I have some dishonorable mentions. I'm going to keep it brief, and I'm going to keep them limited to 5 because I don't want to go on for any longer than I have to, so I'll be brief. Even though Until Dawn is not the worst horror movie of the year, I feel it's the one worth mentioning because it only excels in the baseline jump scare horror, and I do feel if it had a weaker premise, it would have easily been on the top 10 worst. But I mean, yeah, the jump scare fest was enjoyable, nothing else. Doesn't mean it's good. Smurfs wasn't getting off this list without a mention. It was more entertaining than I thought it would be, but it's not good. It's by no means good. I won't blame you if you put this on your top 10 worst list. I just found it more so bad it's good than outright atrocious, but yeah, worth a mention. Happy Gilmore 2 deserves a mention for one simple fact. It's basically what I expected, and not exactly good. It's not a Happy Gilmore sequel. It's basically just an Adam Sandler movie that they basically marketed it as a Happy Gilmore sequel, and it's not really that fun. Some fun moments and some laughs, but not exactly worth it. Just watch the original. Another Margaret Qualley movie, Honey Don't, was a film that was so close to actually being decent if it just had a consistent plot. No, it feels like they went in so many different directions and didn't connect them in a cohesive way. Quality's good, but that's not enough to make this anything less than a mess. And finally, perhaps the most disappointingly bad movie that I'm mentioning, Love Hurts. Ke Huy Quan's first leading role, and he's the only thing that's really redeeming it on top of A7 North's fun action, which only lasts 15 minutes. Otherwise, it's a goofy action movie that is not self-aware on how to be goofy, so it just comes across as sad. Very boring otherwise, but hey, it was not bad enough to make the list. Well, and we kick off the top 10 with number 10, which is a film that I was surprised actually made the list, but I mean, hey, I didn't see as many bad movies in the second half of the year as I thought, but this one came out in the summer, and I was actually decently excited for Old Guard 2, simply on the fact that Old Guard 1 just turned out to be such a surprise. Granted, I watched it right before seeing Old Guard 2, and man, the tonal whiplash between this one and the second one is very bizarre, especially considering the fact that it had the same writer. And it just feels completely different. Weaker action than the first one, despite one scene in particular really working. The characters that I got so attached to with the original, or at least decently attached to, no connection here. And I didn't mention this in my review, so I guess brief spoilers, but it ends on a cliffhanger setting up Old Guard 3. I think a lot of people already know this, but it's very annoying how it's set up in the movie because you are basically making Old Guard 2 for the sake of making Old Guard 3. Making this movie kind of pointless because Old Guard 3 isn't even confirmed yet. So what was the point of this movie? Just to get the gang back together in order to make a very disappointing third installment? Yeah, no. Just stick with the original and just watch literally anything else except the movies that are worse on the list. It's a movie that really left me disappointed and only has a few good moments, but not enough to mask up the boredom that I felt. Number 9, Havoc. I'm going to try to be quick with this one because this is the only movie this year that left me feeling nothing. Like, the action could have been fun if it just wasn't filled with so much shaky cam that you can barely have fun with it. Like, I see the choreography working, but the shaky cam hinders it. Now, I haven't seen The Raid or The Raid 2, but I heard nothing but praises about the director. And Havoc is directed by that guy I'm blanking out, but, So this movie really doesn't do the legacy of the director justice. The actors try their best, but they ultimately come across as wasted in their roles. It ultimately feels boring because the plot is just stale and executed in a way that even if it didn't try new things, it just came across as boring. Yeah, I think I'm done talking about it. Like, the movies below this list, I have a lot more to say. Well, Havoc is just a lost cause, unfortunately. 4 years in development hell, and man, it shows. Number 8, Borderline. I wasn't actually expecting this film to make the top 10 worst list, as it's one of the only films on this list in which I do not have a review on it, at least fully. Again, the 2025 movies ranked list. Like, I heard it was bad, then I decided to watch the trailer for crap and giggles, and I actually thought it could be good. The only good thing about it after watching it is really Ray Nicholson. The script wastes his talents, but he's clearly trying his best to elevate the material more than it actually deserves. It's pretty boring. The rest of the actors do their best, but I do feel like Nicholson is the only one that's actively committing to the bit when the script really does not deserve him. Like, it tries to be a dark comedy, but it falls flat because it's kind of confused on what it wants to be. Like, I mean, the plot's potentially interesting, but you gotta handle it with a lot of care to the point where you do not act stupid. Like a deranged man thinking that he's going to be marrying a pop star, even though that he's not marrying a pop star in reality. That could be fun. But no, the movie executes it in such a ridiculous way that it doesn't come across as fun ridiculous, it comes across as dull ridiculous. Samara Weaving has another movie on this list, and she's better in a weaker movie on this list. So yeah, Nicholson. Hope this movie doesn't do a lot of damage to your career, but man, I wish I had more fun with it. Next up, Mala Influenza, or Bad Influence. I don't know why I watched this movie. This was like the movie that broke my watching whatever I can trend, as I mentioned in the beginning of this review. And that kind of was present in 2024 too, but this movie really made me stop watching movies on a whim. The actors are good, but I do feel that the script and narrative are just very dull, very generic, but not executed in a fun way. We'll give the first half of the movie this. It is enjoyably bad, and I do feel if the second half of this movie was the same level of enjoyably bad, it probably would have been spared. But no, instead, the second half was one of the most boring movies I've seen all year. In a year which has seen a lot of boring movies, especially on this list. So yeah, I can't think of the fun I had. I can only think of the snooze that I had. I didn't fall asleep, but still. All leading to a happily ever after that was literally following an event that shouldn't indicate a happily ever after. I don't know what you want me to say. It's just a movie that really has nothing to it. It's ultimately leeching off the trend that Twilight started, and it's not even entertaining as many of those other entries, such as My Fault London. So just watch that if you want a better Bad Influence. I'm not watching a sequel if they make one. Absolutely not. I wasted my time with one movie. I'm not wasting my time with another. This movie taught me that's the bad decision. So yeah, it's ultimately a bad movie, a bad influence. That was a dad joke. Number 6 on this list, the first movie I saw all year, Henry Danger the movie. A movie that may cater to the remaining Henry Danger fans, as I used to be one. In fact, my first review ever was of Danger Force, the spinoff. But man, I do not remember Henry Danger being this generic and dull, despite clearly having a higher budget than the show and clearly trying to be a theatrical movie, or at least that's what the IMDb plot tells you. If Dan Schneider was the reason that Henry Danger was so enjoyable in the first place, fine, keep the movie the way it is. You could have at least tried to, do something new and inventive. Instead, it was just a dull multiverse adventure that doesn't even utilize the cast in a pretty effective way. It was just basically, here we have an idea. Here's the cast in that idea. Maybe we recycle that idea a few minutes later, because why not? A lot of people complain about multiverse stories being dull, and Henry Danger the movie is kind of the embodiment of that. Although Avengers Doomsday is basically heading toward a brick wall with its multiverse concept, it'll probably be much more entertaining than this. I'll give it credit, there was one scene that had gorgeous cinematography, and Jace Norman still does good as Henry Hart, making me wonder why he hasn't got cast in an A24 film away from Henry Danger. But I mean, yeah, just a movie that I really shouldn't have watched, but I decided my connection to this franchise is so big that I might as well, and I regret it. Coming up next, a film that shouldn't really be on this list, but G20 really did not do anything right for me to justify leaving it off the list. Like, it was so easy for them to make an entertaining action film, but instead it turned out to be just streaming slop, with a script that feels more AI generated than probably any movie on this list, and actors that are trying their best, but Viola Davis and Anthony Starr specifically, they're just let down by how dull the movie is overall. Like, it takes every shortcut with no room for interesting ideas, and when it indicates that it'll take an interesting direction, it just slams you shut with the most predictable conclusion imaginable. And if the action was fun, maybe I would excuse it, but even though the choreography is decent, it just doesn't come across as a fun action movie. It's a D-tier Die Hard clone with crypto. Enough said. Number 4, the movie that the internet just tore apart, but I do not think it is as bad as people are saying. Don't mean Snow White's good. Like, it was one of those movies that I really regretted seeing in theaters, and I don't think that's because of a PR nightmare. Like, the reason it's on this list is not because Rachel Zegler's torching of her own reputation. She's actually the best part of this movie, and her acting's really good in it. But I do feel a lot of people may call it the worst movie of all time just because of how much animosity she has toward the legacy of the Snow White IP, and unfortunately none of that animosity comes across on screen. At least from her. And the rest of the movie feels alien to what Snow White used to be. And even if it's not, it's just executed very boringly. The dwarves were fine, contrary to popular belief, and Waiting on a Wish was a good new original song. The rest, princess problems. Probably one of the worst songs I've heard in cinema. With Gal Gadot absolutely trying her best but ultimately failing to bring a sort of fun vibe to the evil queen, and just ultimately being dull, not even focusing on the dwarves, but instead focusing on these bandits, to the point where even through the boredom I was just hoping, begging this movie to absolutely end in a satisfying way. But no, instead it was just so bizarre the way they ended the movie. To the point where I ultimately have to say that this movie was probably doomed to fail from the start, even though I was one of the few people who are like, no, it has a chance of working. It's on this list though, so who am I kidding? Number 3, yes, there's worse than Snow White, Eeny Meeny, a movie that I absolutely hated when I watched it, and kind of like Snow White, I was hoping for it to like redeem itself in the last act. Ultimately, yeah, it is a bit better than the preceding 90-ish minutes, but not enough to be worth it. As I said in my review, the most boring movie I've seen all year, even though the 2 movies below it are objectively worse. Again, Samara Weaving's doing a good job as her titular character, while the rest of the actors feel like they're sleepwalking through it. The love interest is absolutely unlikable, while the ultimate setup means that when we get to the somewhat fun finale, it's just not exactly worth it. Just skip Eeny Meeny if you don't want to waste your time. Simple as that. Number 2 is probably the most frustrating movie of the year, that being The Woman in the Yard. Yes, it left me bored. Yes, it felt like a stale horror movie. But unlike all the other movies on this list, it actually does try to do crazy things with its concept. But those crazy things are executed in such a way that it ultimately feels disheartening and mean-spirited. Like, the way the movie ends, like, it's probably going to divide audiences, and I'm on the side of, no, it wasn't the right call, they mishandled that completely. It's really the ending that really ruins this movie. Like, the 3/4 preceding it were just boring. Well, the last 30 minutes were just going all over the place to the point where you're not exactly having fun with it. Good acting and some genuinely good moments, but they are too far in between to be left off this list. Number 1 is probably the one that everybody expected to be number 1. Like, I do not think a single person's probably going to say, this is not number 1. Say with a straight face that War of the Worlds doesn't deserve to be number 1. Say it. I do not hear anything, so that means I'm right. But I mean, yeah, it was a movie that I absolutely would have avoided if everybody wasn't talking about it, because it just went to my attention like a week before release, and everybody was just tearing it apart, so I kind of had to join the trend. And while I was hoping for like an enjoyably bad movie, I did not get that. Maybe you'll get that enjoyable experience, but really it's not really that fun. Maybe 2 ironic laughs, but not enough to work. The premise was so interesting, too, that it just frustrates me more and more. Not the most frustrating movie of the year, as I already said, number 2 is that. It's not the most boring movie I've seen. Not even the most boring movie I've seen all year, but man, it does drag. With so many ads for Amazon that it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like a direct advertisement. All the actors feel like they're cashing in the easiest paychecks of their career, while the CGI is abhorrent. As I said in my review, I'm all for movies always getting a chance to be released. If anything just doesn't release, I do feel like that's a loss to our society. So the fact that War of the Worlds came out is a win of itself. However, it wasted a lot of our times and doesn't even compensate with like a good movie overall. I'm willing to say that the other War of the Worlds adaptations are probably better, despite me not seeing any of them. And yeah, it just comes across as easily the worst movie of 2025, and easily in the conversation for one of the worst movies of all time. Yeah, I guess that's it. In terms of the top 10 worst movies of the year, like, again, the level of awfulness was a lot less than last year. Still don't mean they're good. Maybe some enjoyment with the movies higher on this list, but as we get lower and lower deep down into that list, man, it's just soul crushing. With some of these movies, I'm not going to be able to forget because that's how bad they are. But here's hoping. I'll be back with my top 10 best movies of 2025, hopefully the day after this uploads. So yeah, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, and comment your thoughts on this list, and let me know what your top 10 worst movies of the year were. Alright, peace.